Ever wanted to read the Bible in the original but without learning Hebrew? If so, I think you are in the right place. Hi, and welcome to a new video that lets English speakers read the Tanakh or the Old Testament in Hebrew. You don't need any previous knowledge of the language, and I will walk you through the text and share with you important and sometimes surprising aspects that are visible only when reading the original. My name is Ilan, and I am a native speaker. Please note that this channel is all about linguistics, not religion. So with that in mind, let's go straight to the text. The third verse of the Bible in Hebrew looks and reads like this. Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Or, Vayehi Or. Okay, just 6 words, but a lot to unpack. As you will see shortly, this verse is an interesting one. As always, we'll now go over each of the Hebrew words and see what we can learn. The first word of the verse is the verb, vayomer. The first letter is vav. This is the third consecutive sentence in the chapter that starts with this letter. If you've watched the videos I've published on this channel before this one, you might recall that vav serves as a prefix meaning and. In short, vayomer means and said. This time though, when we drop the vav, something strange happens. You see, the verb yomer is actually conjugated to be in the future. I can give you proof of that, but as this word appears several times in the chapter, let's save it for later. Suffice it to say, at this point, that yomer is definitely in the future. In other words, the text appears to say, and God will say. But wait, this story of the creation happened in the past, right? It did. There is something in the word that changes it from being in the future tense to the past tense. What might this be? The answer is the narrow, unassuming letter vav at the beginning, which we've already mentioned. This is the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet in the same spot as F in English. However, vav is pronounced like the English letter V. It also doubles as a vowel, but that's for another day. If you can recall what we said about vav just a minute ago, it often serves as a prefix for the conjunction and. However, vav has another role, a very special one. It is also a converter that turns verbs in the future to be in the past tense, and vice versa. So yomer is in the future, i.e. it means he will say, but when we add the converting vav, the unit created, vayomer, turns to be in the past and means he said. I know, it sounds weird, but this is one of the most distinctive features of Biblical Hebrew, and it is all over the place. This grammatical concept was later abandoned even during antiquity, and thus remained ever since a hallmark of Hebrew in the Bible. In fact, when modern Hebrew speakers want to write or talk in biblical style, for whatever reason, this is exactly the first linguistic instrument they use. To conclude our discussion about this word, vayomer means said in the third person, masculine, singular, and past. The next word is Elohim, God. Combining the two first words together, vayomer Elohim, is and said God, or in better English, and God said. Now we get to the main part of the verse, which is the quote of God's command and what happened as a consequence, namely the outcome. But looking closer at the text, we can see that something doesn't seem to make much sense. Just by comparing the letters, even merely as unintelligible symbols, it is clear that we have here some kind of a repetition. There are actually 2 pairs of 2 short words each, and they look very much alike. The only difference is again the letter vav, which we have just talked about, located right there in the middle. As we've said already, in this verse, God ordered to create the light. This is the command part, and then the light was created. This is the outcome part. In English, each of those 2 parts uses different words. which is what we would expect. Yet it seems that in Hebrew, the command and the outcome are identical. Do you see it? How can this be? Before we solve the mystery, let's first go over each word separately so we'll have a bit more knowledge to work with. The first word in this phrase, and the third in the whole verse, is yehi. Note that this short three-letter word is most commonly translated into English using three words with a total of 10 letters. Note that let and there in English are additions, and their only purpose here is to make the sentence consistent with how English works. In actual fact, there is no equivalent to let there in the original. Yehi is basically the Hebrew for to be in English, conjugated in the future tense. To be more precise, yehi should be translated into English as shall or shall be. You see, yehi is a higher register word, much like shall is stylistically higher than will. And speaking of will in English, the related normal register Hebrew verb, both in the Bible and the modern language, is yihyeh. This is the word we Israelis use in everyday life, not yehi. So the literal translation of the command part should be shall light or shall be light. By the way, there is another meaning for yehi, expressing hope. In Psalms 122:7, yehi is used to wish peace and tranquility to the city of Jerusalem. This usage as wishing or hoping for, or may it be, appears in more hymns in Psalms and several other places across the Bible. Another point to make is that in Hebrew, the future and the imperative are strongly linked. The imperative is the form of verbs used for giving orders, like eat in the sentence, eat your peas. There are conjugations in the language specifically dedicated to the imperative, but the Bible here chooses not to use them, but the future instead. To recap, yehi here is a command ordering something to be. Which leads us to the next word, or. Or is just the ordinary word to denote light, in the sense of visible light, but not lightweight or light touch. We have another word for that. Like choshech or darkness in Genesis 1:2, or has remained unchanged from biblical times to this day, and is the normal way in Israel to refer to light. And so, or kachol is blue light, and or shemesh is sunlight. The next two words, as noted before, are exactly the same as those we've just covered. Almost. They are vayehi or. The only difference is the added letter vav or and. Since the command and the outcome share the same words, on the face of it, this should be read shall be light and shall be light. How can this be possible? It appears that we can't really tell the command from the outcome. You can't just write them the same and expect readers to decide which is which, right? Well, there is one piece of the puzzle that solves this. I actually gave you the answer early on in this video. The vav here makes all the difference. Do you remember that it has a role as a converter from future to past? So the verb yehi means shall be, but with the converter added, vayehi means was. It follows then that the closest literal translation of yehi or vayehi or is shall be light and was light. It sounds awful in English, but this is only because we're dealing here with two very different languages. Yehi or, vayehi or, actually sounds really good in Hebrew. The use of the same word twice, but with a converter, which is also a conjunction at the very same time, is in all likelihood something that was done by design. I think this is not a coincidence, but an intentional choice, maybe for the artistic effect. Here you have it, a seemingly simple verse, but there is more to it than meets the eye, at least when exploring the Hebrew. Let's read the verse one more time and see if you can now understand the Hebrew more than you could a few minutes ago. Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Or, Vayehi Or. In my next video, we will read the 4th verse of the Bible, Genesis 1:4. The good news is that there are not less than 4 words that we might recognize already because they have appeared in previous verses. I will of course go over and translate each and every one, but if you want to have this, hey, I know this word kind of feeling, it is strongly advisable to watch my earlier videos and get prepared. The best way to do that is by clicking on the thumbnail here, which will take you to a playlist of all my videos for this chapter, starting with Genesis 1:1. Please like, share, write a comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.